Hey muckers, welcome back to my YouTube channel. It feels so good to be finally sitting down filming more videos and also back in our normal setup. So I am now back in Brighton. I just got back from Vegas and it was the most incredible trip ever. I am wearing my Mariah Carey merch and don't you worry, I'm also wearing my Mimi. I'm also wearing my Mariah Carey tracksuit bottom head to toe. I had the most incredible time on the trip. I know I was filming videos out there and I had a couple vlogs go up. Thank you so much to everyone that was watching those. I know they're a little bit different than my commentary videos, but I know people had fun with them. I had fun filming them. But basically, I had a really good trip. There's one major thing I want to talk about, and we're going to get to that. A really quick rundown. LA with my mom is basically like the time of the year where I see my mom. I don't see my parents that often because they're back in Ireland, obviously, and I'm in Brighton. And obviously I have dogs. They have dogs. Like they live, in their own house. They have their own thing. I live in my own house, have my own thing. Like it's very hard to kind of cross paths. But this LA trip with my mom is the time of the year, every single year, the same time where we see each other and we live together and it's just amazing. And LA just was so incredible. And there were so many muckers that I met out in LA. My favorite was running into someone at the Pink Wall who was wearing an Adam McIntyre shirt that they had made themselves. I was like, yes. It was the most incredible trip. And then we were able to squeeze in Mariah Carey's Vegas residency at the end. If you know anything about me, you know that I love Mariah Carey so much. And my mom has loved Mariah Carey all her life. So being able to have my mom be there and experience a Mariah concert for the first time in her entire life was really special to be there with her for that. And then anyway, we got back, and I will say that the jet lag is kind of crazy, so please bear with me. But I said this in my vlog before we get into the topic. I said this in my vlog, and I also really do want to say it here without sounding BS like YouTuber trying to, say the things that you're supposed to say, that you always hear YouTuber being like, I love you guys for the support so much and stuff like that. I do just want to say that it's one thing that people watching my videos is the reason that I'm able to travel. Like, this is what I do. So I want to always kind of bring it back to thanking you for allowing me to be able to do these things by watching my videos, because that is how I'm able to do this. But I also kind of want to extend it a little bit further and say that you're the sole reason that I'm able to allow my parents to experience really fun trips and them come with me and be able to like make my mom's dreams come true of seeing like one of her favorite singers. So I do just want to say that if you watch any of the videos or you support, it means the entire world, and you have completely changed my life, but you've also changed my parents' life. So thank you so much. Okay, let's get into what I want to talk about. So obviously there are so many topics that I need to get to, but I thought it was only right to talk about something that has been absolutely filling my DMs, which is obviously that I met up with Josh and Swoop whenever I was in LA. A lot of people have a lot of questions. A lot of people want to figure out what happened, why we were meeting up, just what went down. And I knew that I was wanting my first video back to kind of be talking about the experience, because let me tell you something, it was one of the most surreal experiences of my entire life. It's hard to put into words how much meeting these two people meant to me, and for two very different reasons. But basically, how it came about was me and Josh don't talk very often, and me and Swip don't talk very often as well. Obviously, last year was a huge thing where we were all talking to each other constantly, and there were a lot of interviews, and there was a lot going on. And my relationship with these two people now is, every few weeks, like, we'll send each other like a hey, hope you're doing well message or something. It's just very casual. But anyways, I knew that I always wanted to have some sort of conversation with Josh, because I've spoken about the fact that the Josh and Adam lore is something that I just always wanted to have an in-face conversation with him, because in everything that happened, Josh was the one person in all of it I never met. I met Colleen, I met her family, I met Eric, Josh was the one person I had never met in all of it, and I think he's the only one involved that I had never had a face-to-face with, and that was always something that I would have always liked to have had, considering, how much we were thrown into shit together publicly. It's face-to-face conversations are very different, and there's a lot of things, you maybe want to talk about in person rather than text, or maybe show things in person where you're not sending them. And so anyways, it had been an idea for a while of me and Josh possibly meeting up and literally just like talking. And anyways, whenever I went to LA with my mom, I'd basically sent him a message being like, hey, I'm staying in the West Hollywood area. Like, me and my mom have rented out an Airbnb. Like, it's not a hotel. Like, if you want to come over and we can talk, it'll be a much less daunting situation. My mom will be here as well. And, it's very different, like, inviting over to, like, a hotel room versus, like, an Airbnb house. And anyways, we worked it out, and we were able to do, I think it was a Tuesday. And so I had organized this at the start of the trip. So let me tell you something. This was the day before we went to Vegas. We went to Vegas on Wednesday, and then we left the entire trip on Thursday. So this was our last day in LA. And let me tell you something. It was on my mind the entire LA trip. I was so nervous to meet Josh because I don't know this man. He doesn't know me. You know what I mean? Like, we've had a lot of interactions online. We are very deep in the lore together, but we do not know each other at all. Like, so it was something that was very, very, very daunting to me, and I knew that there was a lot of conversations that I personally wanted to have with him, and probably he wanted to have with me, that would be a little bit uncomfortable to have to bring up. So it probably, for both of us, was a very awkward, week building up to this. But anyways, it came around to the Tuesday, and I think like the day or so before it, I had reached out to Swip, and because I knew that she was in the LA area, and I was like, hey, like, if you're in the area, like, I'm meeting up with Josh, and we basically worked it out, and she was available, and she was like, yeah, I can come over on Tuesday as well. So the plans were now that Josh and Swip were going to come over to the Airbnb, and me and my mom were going to, be in the Airbnb, and we could just talk, and it would be very chill, and people could leave when they wanted to. I think for my main thing, I didn't want anyone to feel uncomfortable that they had like a time limit. For example, like, I didn't want to go to dinner with both of them, and then maybe they didn't want to be there for that long, and then you have to wait until the dessert comes out, or you have to, and it was just kind of, it felt like the most authentic, low pressure environment. Well, I mean, I was staying at the house, so it was very comfortable for me. Maybe it was a little bit more uncomfortable for them coming to a place that they didn't know, you know what I mean? But they both agreed to come over, and they were both really excited. We were talking about it. I was super excited to meet Swip. Again, we kind of got her on board coming like maybe the day or so before. I remember I was at Olivia's birthday thing, and that was when we confirmed it, and I was like, oh my god, like, so much is happening. And so anyways, the Tuesday rolls around. Me and my mom are shitting ourselves the entire day because, again, my mom is going to be there. I don't know how she's going to be with specifically Josh, like, because again, my mom knows everything now, but Josh was very much so involved in the world at the time where I kept a lot from my mom. So I was equally as nervous for what my mom was going to say to Josh, and I'm sure that Josh was very nervous to meet my mom as well, because like, meeting me is one thing, but then my mom being there, and I was very glad that my mom was going to be there. And anyways, the day of, me and my mom are shitting ourselves, and we had organized, we had gotten drinks for everyone. We had got like all these lemonades and stuff, and we had put like a fruit platter, and we had put like popcorn out, which neither of these bitches ate. Not one bite. Josh and Swip, just know that me and my mom lugged it from the markets buying y'all stuff, right? And we were checking out, literally, we were checking out 30 minutes after they left, because they ended up staying for a while. And we just had to dump all the food, and I was like, these bitches didn't eat anything. Oh, and I didn't want to eat because they weren't eating, so it was just sitting there. And whenever they left, my mom immediately started eating the fruit, and she was like, oh, I didn't want to be the only one eating. So anyways, we had like a little platter set up for them, and they both were kind of going to be arriving at the same time. So Josh arrives, and my mom is like, Adam, he's here. And my heart has never been so nervous in my entire life. Sorry, let me go back to here. I've never been so nervous in my entire life of someone like walking into the garden of where the house was. And I could see him in the window, and I was like, oh my God, this is actually happening, because there was just a level of, I couldn't believe it was happening. Keep in mind, I was a big fan of Josh for a very long, like, the time I was a fan of Colleen was the time I was a fan of Josh. And also keep in mind, a big thing that I've been very open on is the full thing with me and Colleen. A big part of our relationship was me doing stuff for Colleen, and a lot of that was leaking information about Josh, which is basically all was lies. And basically just making his life hell. And that is something that I apologize profusely to him for. I did in 2020, I did in 2023, and I did in person. And it's like, that was also something that was on my mind, where it's like, did I give him a hug? Or does he like hate me? And then should I hate him? Like, what is our dynamic here? So I was petrified of meeting him. But I knew it would be good for both of us to kind of have a place where we could just openly talk to each other, and there's no cameras, there's no, like it's not, we're not having a filtered conversation where we don't want to say something out of legal, or you know what I mean? It just was able to be a very real conversation. So anyways, I opened the door and there he is, Joshua David Evans, and it was the most bizarre thing in my entire life, because as being a fan at that time of Joshua David Evans, having all his merchandise, wanting, to go to his shows when he was doing them, wanting to go to his meet and greets, it was the most bizarre thing for Josh just to be standing there. And I'm sure it was very bizarre to him as well, because he knew me as, Adam from the fandom, and then Adam that made my life hell. You know what I mean? So it was probably just very overwhelming for him, the same way that it felt for me. But anyways, it was so lovely to meet him. He was so kind, and he asked, was it okay to give a hug? We gave a hug. Obviously a little bit awkward at the start. He came in, I showed him around the house, and then my mom came down and they had that same thing, and he immediately went in for a hug with her, and they had a hug, and they had a brief conversation while I was kind of like walking around the house. I knew that they were going to be like having their little like icebreaker moment. So I just like walked around the house, and my mom has ultimately told me that he basically like straight in there was asking her, did she feel comfortable with this? Like, how does she feel about it? Like, and was basically, he was just very self-aware of everything. So anyways, Josh sits down and me and my mom sit down at the table, and Swip arrives maybe like 20 minutes later or something like that. So we were having a very brief conversation. We didn't want to get into things too much because we didn't want to rehash things when Swip got there. So anyways, Swip gets there and looks so gorgeous. Oh my God. In person, obviously very beautiful online, but oh my God. See, whenever I saw that blue hair, I went, there's the diva. Swip just was the most, I can't even describe her energy whenever I met her. Like, just the most like warm embrace ever. It was it was equally as surreal to meet Swip on the same way that it was with Josh, but two very different reasons. If you like understand, like the Josh thing, there was so much lore behind, but with the Swip thing, there was so much lore, but it was from like last summer. Like, I really only knew who Swip was from last summer, in the same way Swip would have only known me last summer. But with Josh, it went back, like 10 years. Is that right? Yeah, 10 years. And so two very different, situations. So Swip comes in, meets my mom, is incredibly lovely to my mom. And my mom sits at the table, I sit at the table, Swip sits at the table, Josh sits at the table. And I think they came over at 7, and me and my mom had to go to LAX that night at midnight. We had to be there no later than midnight. Tell me why. I look at my phone and it is 11:30. Like, we had all just been talking, like me saying things, my mom saying things, Josh saying things, Swip saying things. We had been talking from 7 p.m. until 11:30, and all of us lost track of time. Like, there was just an unbelievable amount of things to talk about. Like, I'm sure you're all aware, but like, there just was so much to deep dive. And there were so many comparing stories. There were so many showing things. And obviously, I don't want to air anyone's shit out, specifically with the things that Josh was saying. But, we would talk about stories and compare them and stuff. You know what I will say? May Colleen Ballinger, for the rest of her days, feel an impending doom of just being an awful person. Because the conversation at that dinner table were all things that I had heard a point of view of from Colleen, and then I was hearing and seeing things that were the other point of view. So this was all things that Colleen had already told me, or already whatever, and then I was, hearing the endings of stories where Colleen would conveniently whatever. May that woman, for the rest of her days, know how awful of a person she has been to people. I hope she genuinely has to sit with that for the rest of her days. I genuinely hope she does, because she is an actual terrible person. And like, I would actually argue like an evil, malicious person. An evil, malicious person. Insane. And it was also just super validating to like hear stories that I had been grown up being told by Colleen and then hearing a version of the story that sounds so much more realistic or so much more accurate or wow, that makes sense. But obviously, if I'm being told this at 14, that makes more sense whenever I'm just trying to idolize this person. Now, there's obviously so much lore. Colleen, Corey, Eric, Cody, Johnny, who, by the way, is back on social media under the name John Thomas. I don't know why his shit has been popping up on my social media. It was like, person you may know, John Thomas. And I'm like, oh, okay, so now he's rebranded under a different name. Okay. Hi, Johnny. Welcome back, I guess, a year. You know, probably had the fucking timer set. But anyways, it was just very, very, very validating to, like, know that I wasn't crazy in a lot of things. And it was also really crazy to hear how I was being talked about at that time period from the people involved. And I can't imagine how surreal it was for my mum, who grew up with me idolizing Colleen and Josh, and then has one half of that in front telling stories on how I was being talked about or how I was being treated behind the scenes from one of those people. Like how that was, you know, I can't even imagine what that felt like for my mum. And I'm so glad that my mum stayed the entire duration of the thing. And it was so natural with my mum being there as well. Like, I didn't know if maybe my mom was not going to want to be there the entire time or whatever, but she sat, and it was like we were just all like going around one by one, and it was a very just raw couple hours. And what I will say is Swip is exactly who you think she is. Like, the Swip that you watch, that person who is so delicate with how they address things, how they talk, just their opinions on things. I was just so blown away with how authentic Swip was. And we all went around the table like doing thank yous and apologies and all like this, but I did this to her face, but I just cannot thank her enough for what she has done for me. And also, again, I'm being very careful not to like air out things that were said, because that were things that were said in the moment. But not only has Swip been such a validating entity for me in that time period and added a lot of, like I said, validity and piecing things together that no one else was doing, including me, you know what I mean? It was just a lot of work, and I didn't want to deep dive it. And, you know, she did that, and the story would constantly change. You know, Johnny would lie in interviews, and then it changes everything, and then the story deep dived into Josh, and people were saying to Swip in that moment, okay, you're taking too long with this documentary. We don't care about it anymore. And the fact she did not give up on that story, me and Josh were both basically just thanking her for that as well, because we were saying we would have given up on it. The amount of harassment Swip got at that time for, you know, saying she would upload on Monday, and then the story changes, so she has to upload the Monday after or something, and people being like, oh, well, we don't care now. Like, the amount of shit she went through still to this day as well for doing that, and she didn't give up on the story. I just think she's an incredible, incredible person. And also, the lore goes so much beyond me that, keep in mind, Josh does not do internet stuff anymore. You know, he is a real person with, you know, a real job now. And hearing how, when the allegations come up again, because Cody restarted it, and that was how it started, and then Johnny calling Josh all these things, I don't know why, but I never realized that, oh, Josh is in the real world with a real job. Rolling Stones are writing articles about him being, you know, all these different things that were all lies by Johnny. How much that would affect the day-to-day of having a regular job, a boss reading that stuff. And what I will say is, not only did Swip really do so much for me with that docuseries, but I'm going to be honest, I think she's genuinely saved Josh's life in multiple ways. And I am so grateful for her. And I was so grateful as well that she took the time to come over and sit and talk and just, and also, you know, she was able to tell us a lot of things in the docuseries that got cut out and weren't allowed to get in, and interviews that were off the record and stuff like that. And it was just like, and by off the record, I mean, she chose not to put them in, not that the interviews were off the record. And it was just crazy how much more there is and how much more there was. And so anyways, I had posted this picture of them. This is out in the garden. Josh had wrote, I appreciate you both in more ways than I can express. Adam, your mama is the sweetest. I'm pretty sure Josh posted a photo as well. Did he? I think he did. I think we all posted. So Josh posted this one. Also, Josh, I don't look like this. How is it that all three of us posted photos, which are not edited, by the way, and I look like this in Josh's one, I look like this in Swip's, and I look like this in mine. Now, in mine and Swip's photos, I look the exact same. Now, Josh, why in your photo do I have a beard? It has given me like a mustache or whatever. I don't know what phone this motherfucker has, but it has like completely tweaked my face. This does not look like me. If you like actually see, it's giving me like a full on shadow and stuff. I do not have that. I was fuming when I saw this photo. I went, who is that? And everyone was replying being like, why does Adam look like that? And I'm like, I promise you I don't look like that. Look, I'm right here in this moment. Wait. Who's that? Who's that? Anyways, so Josh had posted this, Swip had posted this one, and then I had posted this. It was just super incredible and super surreal to meet them. And at one stage I had came down the stairs. I went to the bathroom, and Swip, Josh, and my mom were sitting. And I said to Josh, I was like, I made a joke. I walked down and it was like, this feels like one of those things where like a YouTuber will come and surprise their biggest fan. They're just sitting in their house, whatever, just making a joke. And all of us were just laughing at the fact of like me being in the fandom and how much has happened between then and then us being able to come over and compare stories from that time period that are very negative. You know what I mean? It's just, there was so much discussed that just like has fully changed my perception on things, fully whatever. And it's crazy to hear stories about someone who has affected your life so much and hear that they have done the same to other people, but arguably 10 times worse, and be like, wow, I'm actually not in the wrong for hating this person. Wow, this person is actually genuinely evil and deserves to, you know, live with the fact that they're an awful person, and their kids, you know, will grow up and realize that, you know, mommy is an awful person. And that is completely something that actually brings me joy. And call me a hater, call me a nasty person, but with the things that she put people through, if she even felt a percentage of that, she'd be miserable. And I think she is. And again, I cannot air other people's stuff out, but you just have no idea. You have no idea like how deep the lore of her being terrible goes. And I think that awful people deserve to be called out. And yeah. So I did just want to come on and talk about that experience. I want to thank both of them again for not only making the effort to come over and being so kind and so sweet, but also really being involving to my mom. And I know that that was a big moment for my mom as well. It was kind of like a big chapter close for my mom and also for me. And it was just a very healing, you know, day. Like a lot of people saw these photos and were like, oh, the shit starters. Like they're just, and it was like, you have no idea genuinely how healing this was for like everyone involved. Swip, who worked her ass off in this docuseries, got so much hate, is probably deeper in the lore than anyone because she has so many different people's sides. Her being able to get things off her chest, Josh being able to get things off his chest, me getting things off my chest, my mom being able to ask questions, get things confirmed, get things validated, get things whatever. Like, it was overwhelmingly productive. Overwhelmingly productive. And I thank these two people so much. Swip, you have no idea what you have done for me. Josh, I will always have a special place for you now. And yeah, just shout out to both these people. I know a lot of people were wondering what went down. That is what went down. Just really two great people. Genuinely two great people. And I'm going to leave it there. I am going to go back to my regular videos now. I hope you're all doing very well. Thank you for allowing me the time with my mom. And thank you again for genuinely changing my life and being able in turn to change my parents' lives. Thank you. And I will see you all very soon. And goodbye.